Hi again. We're at the power miter saw, which is video 5 of 9. Power miter saw we use for steps 3, 4, and 5 of our 5-step process. In the previous two videos, the joiner and the table saw, we went through the first two steps of how to square a board. Joint one edge, rip it to width. So now I have my boards, my pieces here of my table that I cut or ripped on the table saw that I'm going to show you how to cut them to lengths now. Steps 3, 4, and 5. So here at the power miter saw, a couple things, safety rules. Number 1, 4-inch margin of safety. Anytime you need to make any adjustments, such as angles, which we refer to as miters, do that first. So if I needed to cut a 45-degree angle, I would loosen the knob, lift up, and rotate it. Always rotate it away from your hand. You're going to put the board on the left-hand side of the table, held with the left hand, so the angle should be angling away. For our purpose, we're going to be cutting at a 90 or a right angle. Okay, so I have it locked in the 90 position. Steps 3, 4, and 5 of the 5-step process. Step 3 is to cut a little off one end. Since we have our board here that needs to have square ends or right angles, I want to make sure that my ends, both ends, are square. If you recall, on the radial arm saw, when we cut our boards to convenient length, we cut them an inch longer. And that's the purpose. So now we can come back and square the end up, measure the length, and cut the other end. So both ends need to be cut. All right, so the first step is to figure out which is my better end. And this board, my slat here, really doesn't have a bad end. So it doesn't matter which end I cut first. And again, I put it on the left-hand side, and I'm going to cut just a blade's width off of it. So hold the board with your left hand. You're going to grip the saw with your right hand. You're going to pull the trigger, take it all the way down through, back up, release the trigger. Okay? So that's the sequence that you're going to do. Put your board on there, line it up. Put your hand on your right hand on the trigger, pull it, take it all the way down, back up. Okay? So I'm going to do that to all my pieces here. Including my slat, half slat. Okay? So I've got 6 pieces here that I'm going to be cutting to length. Okay, got my board there, safety glasses. The power miter saw isn't tied into the dust collection system, but we have a shop vac hooked up to it that we turn on. So again, I'm not going to turn it on due to the noise factor. So I put my board on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to cut about a blade's width off of the one end. Hold with the left hand, pull the trigger. Down through, back up. All right, so now I have a squared end. I'm going to flip it around, take my tape measure, and these now need to be 20 inches. Got a pencil. Okay, so I got my pencil. Make a mark at 20 inches. Tri-square allows me to make a right angle. So I line up where my 20-inch mark is, put the head of the tri-square there, and draw a line right through my mark. Now, I set it back on the left-hand side without pulling the trigger. I bring it down till my blade, or the blade, is just touching the edge of my line. I want to cut to the line. I don't want to cut my line off. I want to cut right to the line. So the edge of the blade, this edge that I'm looking at should be just barely touching your line. Again, 4-inch margin of safety, hold the board firmly, flat on the table and against the fence, grip the saw, pull the trigger. Down slowly, all the way through, back up. Notice I removed the scrap. So now I have my board 20 inches long. Okay? To do the legs, I do the same thing. Notice this red on the end right here, and this has no red. This would be my better end. Okay? My better end. If I had a piece that, had some bark or was split on the end, remember, I have an extra inch to cut off because that's my convenient length. Put the board up there, bring the saw down till I'm just cutting about a blade's width off. Hold the board firmly. All the way down, back up, square it in, rotate it, measure 34 inches. Take my tri-square, draw a line. So you'll see how much I'm cutting off. Okay? Put it back up there, just like you did on the first step. Line up the blade so it's just touching your line. Hold it firmly, pull the trigger, down through, remove the scrap. So I would do that to my other 3 legs, my other slats, half slats, all the rest of my parts. We use the power miter saw for doing that. If your board is over 8 inches wide, okay, you cannot use the power miter saw. We have to use the radial arm saw for doing our cross cutting. Alright, so just remember, 4-inch margin of safety, keep your board on the left-hand side, grip the saw with your right hand, pull the trigger, take it all the way down through, back up, release, and then remove the scraps after each cut. And that's the power miter saw. Video 4 or 5 of 9.